All right, guys, we got a requested video here. Let's see what we got. All right, guys, so I did receive a request the other day, and a younger viewer asked if I could possibly do a demonstration on how I run 7018 vertical up. So we're going to run a little bit of vertical up stick tonight. So I've got a piece of tube here in my vise. I've got two pieces of scrap here. This is 3/8 plate. I'm just going to tack this together like so. It's better if you have something that can handle some heat. So we're going to use some 3/8 plate here. I'll tack that up, and then I'll tack that on here, and then we'll run this. I'm going to go ahead and clean this up a little bit. We'll get it tacked up. I wanted to use an entry-level machine with entry-level rod, because that's what most beginners are going to be using. So I've got the Arc Captain MiG 205 MP hooked up. We're running it on 110. I'm going to run it about 90 amps. I've got some Buller 332 rod. Buller makes really good rod, but that's all I had. And then I do have some 1/8" Hobart that you could pick up at just like Cal Ranch. So we're going to run some of that as well. So let me grab my hood, and we'll get this piece of plate cleaned up and tacked up, and then we'll run it. Here we go. Okay, so the first tip, if you have a piece of rod like this, where the flux isn't coated, where the flux isn't covering the end of the rod, you got two options. Either just grab a new piece of rod, or it's good for you to learn how to start this. You're gonna have to kind of scratch it like a match, and then hold a long arc on it and melt that away, and as soon as it hits that flux, it's going to kind of smooth out. So let's see what we can do here. Okay, there we go. It's actually a lot harder on one of these inverters than it is on like an engine drive. Another pointer I want to give you guys. See how the flux sticks past the end of that rod? If it does that, here's what I like to do. I'll just take my fingers and pinch that, kind of break it off. Now you can see the metal sticks past the flux. That's going to be a heck of a lot easier to strike an arc. Okay, so I want to try something here, and if this works out, you guys all owe the missus. So for Christmas, my wife gave me a pair of these Ray-Ban Meta AI glasses. Now the reason she gave me these is there's cameras on them. You can see the cameras on the sides of the lenses there. So these glasses should allow me to be able to record my arc shots, I'm hoping. Never hit a man with glasses.
Glasses? Yeah, you can't hit a man with glasses. Come on. Ooh, here.
All right, guys, hopefully it's not too distracting. I've got some plate burning in the background. Hopefully you can still hear me, but I can't turn it off. It's got to run for the next hour. So, all right, so a couple pieces of advice for you first before we start. Now, the angle that I put my rod in the stinger, I like to put it on an upward angle when I'm running vertical up. So it'll help you because you have an upward angle. I like to hold the stinger with both hands. It makes me more steady. If I can rest my elbow, I will. You're always better off if you can be more stable. In this one, I think we'll try to run both. I'll show you guys kind of how I'll deal with both situations, if I've got to rest and if I don't. Okay, another piece of advice I want to give you. When you're running vertical up, it's important that you keep your arms out of the way because the slag is going to fall. Bridger learned the hard way. For the first while when he was learning, he was holding his arms like this and he was holding them down here underneath. So all that slag was falling into the crevice of his arm right here and burning the crap out of him. So don't do that. I like to tuck my elbows into my sides kind of. It helps me be more stable. And then I'll hold the stinger with both hands. That way, as I'm welding, everything can fall down. It's not going to fall in my arms. It's not going to pop on me and land somewhere where it's going to burn me. So that'll help you be more safe while you're doing this too. Let's go ahead and try this. I'm going to see if these glasses will record this, and let's see what we got. Hey Meta, record. Okay, so hopefully you guys can see this. So what I'm doing is I'm going side to side, and I'm kind of traveling in a upside down crescent moon pattern. And you got to keep traveling. You don't want to pause too long, but you don't want to be too short either. If you don't pause long enough, you'll get undercut. If you pause too long, it's going to belly out on you. Okay? So see how I'm just continuing to travel, keep moving. If it gets short enough to where I can't fit my arms in, if it gets short enough to where I can't get my hands in there, then I just stop. You can see I still had a little bit of rod left over, but you're better off to just stop and get a new rod. Okay, so I'm going to show you guys what this looks like here. Hey Meta. That's what it looks like after one rod. Now that's not all that impressive, or at least it doesn't look like it. And then you hit it with a wire wheel. Now, I did have just a teeny bit of undercut when I started down here. I was having some issues getting it to light up. But once I got smoothed out, you can see it looked good. The corners looked good here. So just remember to pause in those corners. And when I say I'm running an upside down moon pattern, I'm kind of going like this. And there's a lot of ways you can do this. I know there's a lot of guys that'll go up, down to the right, left, up, down to the right. They run like a triangle. I don't really like the triangle. I like to run the upside down crescent moon, and I'll run it like this. And as it gets bigger, you know, if I'm running a couple passes, then you'll just... Alright, so let's burn another rod here. We'll keep going. Okay, something else you can do. A lot of people will put the rod in so that it's straight like this, and then they'll bend it just a little bit. And then you can twist that rod and it does the same thing. A lot of guys like that because they can twist it and then it kind of puts it on an uphill angle like that. So if they need to change positions or something like that, you'll see pipeliners do that a lot. So you're getting the same result by bending the rod, but you just want that upward angle. That's going to help you when you're running vertical up. All right, here we go. Okay, so hopefully you can see I got my arms tucked into my sides. Like I said, just going back and forth. Keep traveling. Pause on those sides when you need to. Depending on what rod you're using. and how big a crevice you're trying to fill, your pause time is probably going to be different. Alright, so like I said, I'm running this at 95 amps. Goodness, that's a little inappropriate looking. Get that. Okay, so it's not the best. That's nothing to write home about, but it's going alright. You guys should pay attention to my body movement while I'm welding. You know, like I said, arms tucked in as I'm moving. So as I'm moving, I'm trying to stay tucked up close to my body as I travel. This is the way I like to do it. I'm not saying this is the only way to do it. I'm not saying this is the right way to do it. I'm just saying this is how I like to do it. I like to keep my hands tucked up against my body. And then as I travel, I'll just keep it nice and tight and just move as far as I need to. If I need to go even higher, then I'll kind of start to extend my arms a little bit because, you know, you're T-Rex, you're running out of room. So you do what you got to do. Sometimes if you get to this point, you're getting a little higher, it's a little bit more uncomfortable to run it like this. It is nice if you can brace your elbow against it. And if you're wearing a leather sleeve, you're a lot better off because you don't want to burn your arm while you're doing this. But there is another option, and I'll show you guys what that is. Alright, so a couple options. You can use a hand clamp like this, or you can use an L clamp. Put that on there, and you could kind of manipulate this where you need to. Okay. We're going to tighten this on here. Now I've got an armrest. See, I can brace my elbow on this as I weld, and I'm able to stay steady. The other thing I like about that is the hardest part to be consistent while you're welding and run a good bead is when the rod is long. When it shortens up, it's a lot easier because you've only got to hold this much steady versus this much steady. So it's nice if you can brace yourself when that rod is a little bit longer. So let's go ahead and finish running this one. I'm going to brace my elbow on my L clamp here and finish this one out. Okay, so the other thing you're watching for when you're doing this is, and it really doesn't matter what kind of weld you're running, you always want to watch your puddle. That's what you're looking at. I've noticed that there's a lot of people that I've tried to help welding over the years that they just can't focus on the puddle. It seems like some people have a hard time with that and some don't. But you need to be able to focus on that puddle. If you can see the puddle and you can see what the puddle's doing, then you are going to be able to adjust and do what you need to make the puddle do what you want it to. So let's hit this here. Okay, so it's getting better. You can see the weave on that one was a little bit tighter. Alright, so you can see the weave at the top of that one was a little bit tighter. I did have just a little bit of undercut there at the top. My second pass should cover up most of that stuff. Now if this was a test, you would want to grind out your wagon tracks on either side with a grinder lightly, just until you get all the cavities out of there, and then you'd run another one over the top. So now let's run another one over the top. We're not going to do anything different. The only thing that we change is we've got to go a little bit wider with our crescent moon back and forth, and make sure you pause in those corners to fill it up. You don't want to get that undercut, so that's why you pause in the corners. So let's try that. So another thing I'll do is I'll take a wrap around my arm like this. That way my arm is holding the weight of the lead. This lead is really thin, it's really small, so it's not real heavy. But if I'm welding with my engine drive, I'll typically do that so that my arm is holding the weight. That way I'm not just holding all the weight with my hands while I'm running a vertical up. That's another thing that can help us. So for our cap pass here, we're going to run 1/8 inch 7018. We're going to run it at 120 amps, and let's see how it does. Come on. There we go. Takes a second. Get this rod heated up. Okay. I'm keeping a tight arc. You don't want to long arc it. Keep a tight arc, pause in those corners. You can see I'm not rushing to the other side, but I'm not taking my time either. Why did it stop? Oh, I just tripped the breaker. Well, we'll buff this off. I'll show you guys what it looks like. Apparently that was too much for the machine running 1/8 inch. I would recommend running this on 220. Alright, so you can see here where I stopped. Okay, so I ran from here up to here, and then it tripped. So I'm gonna have to go over and switch this over to 220, which is probably good because it'll be a lot easier to get a good arc start, and then we'll continue on. So give me a second to switch this over to 220. All right, so let's try this again. Okay, pausing in those corners. Can't get in a hurry, and you don't need to panic. Okay, when my rod starts getting short, snap out. And my startup on that one wasn't great, but once I got going, kind of smoothed out. So let's grab another rod and burn another one. Okay, if you get one that sticks, just snap the stinger off, let it cool for a second. If you try to bust that off too fast, it'll just sit and bend. Let it cool for a second, grab it and bust it off, then it gives you minimal damage. Kind of takes a second to get the rod heated up again. Get down to the flux. Okay, now we're smoothing out. Okay, watch that puddle. Left, right, left, right. Pausing in those corners. Keep a nice tight arc length. If I get out too far, it's just gonna belly out and drip on me. The other reason you want to keep a tight arc length is you can run into issues with it spitting back at you, dropping slag, stuff like that. If you have too long of an arc length, which causes more burns. You can ask Bridger, because that's kind of what he was going through for a while. Okay. Now we'll let that cool. We'll hit it with a wire wheel. Alright, so let's see what she looks like. Okay. Now, this is not the greatest, but it's not the worst either. Everybody has their own way of doing it. There's really not a wrong way as long as you can pass your test. But, you know, like I said, some people like the triangle pattern, which is, you know, kind of like this. You're doing triangles, over and over and over. I personally don't really care for that. My preferred method is, like I said, an upside down moon shape, and I just kind of go back and forth like this. So kind of up and over and up and over and down, up and over and down, you know, just kind of back and forth. That's what I like to do. Okay, so because I didn't get the glasses situation figured out until later, so I kind of screwed up the first footage where I ran my first pass. I'm going to switch back to 332, and I'm going to run another pass over this, because I feel like you can see the puddle a little bit better with that smaller rod. It's not as big, it's not in the way like the 1/8 inches. So I'll run another one with that. You guys can take a look at it. Hopefully you can see it better now that I got it figured out where the camera's coming off this side. Okay, so the other thing I want to do here is I just turned that up a little bit to 95 amps. Let's see how it runs. Okay, I'm going to try to get a little bit closer here with my hood and my glasses, and hopefully you guys can see it okay. Okay. Keep a tight arc. With this smaller rod, you got to slow down a little bit as you come across the middle. Hopefully you can see where I'm pausing in the corners, letting it build. Keep it tight. You don't want a long arc length, because that'll just cause it to belly out on you. I'm going to try to correct this. You can see I kind of left a little bit of a crater there. Let that fill in. Pause. Pause. Okay, my rod's getting short. I'm going to snap out. Let's take a look here. Okay guys, so I gotta wait for this plate to burn anyway, so just for fun I decided to put one more pass over the top of this, and I ran this Hobart 1/8 inch rod, but just for fun I pulled out the Multimatic 220 and ran one more pass over the top of it. Same thing, 125 amps. So I'll give you guys a look at the finished product. So you can kind of see that's one of my starts and stops right there. That could have been a little better, but that's what she looks like. So when you're taking a test, this is kind of what it's going to look like at the end. If you're doing like a structural test on 1-inch plate, you're going to have a wide weave when you're done. And so that's kind of what it's going to look like. All right guys, so hopefully there was some good stuff there for you. I hope you got something out of this. If there's other things you want to see, let me know. But hopefully that gave some of you guys that are beginners a little bit of a foundation to start with, and some ideas on some things that'll make this a little bit more enjoyable for you and a little bit easier for you. You know, like I said, find something to brace on. Make sure to get your arms out of the way so you're not burning the crap out of your arms. This is something that obviously you're doing it because you have some interest in it. Try to make it fun, enjoy it. Don't get too frustrated. I know that's easier said than done because I've been frustrated plenty of times, but as you're patient with it and as you take the time to practice this, you're gonna get a lot better. Hood time, hood time. All right, hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. See you on the next one. Alright, so this is probably going to be a fairly quick video, but I did receive a request the other day. A fairly newer, so I've got a piece of rod here. We're running the Arc Captain 205 MP tonight. So let's go ahead and finish running this one. I'm gonna use my elbow. Goodness.